Hey everybody, Brad the Italian here, and today we're going to be going over some dog training tips. Today's tips are going to be on how to get our dogs to speak and how to get our dogs to stop speaking. So first off, in order to get our dogs to stop speaking, we have to teach them when it's appropriate to speak. So we have to teach the command speak. The way we're going to do this is we're going to get them all hyped up and ready to play and all excited and in that wiggle mode, and we're going to get them to try to speak on their own. So they're going to just bark while playing or doing something that gets them to bark, and you're going to go speak and give them the treat immediately. That's first off. And you're going to continue this process over and over again until you can just say speak and they'll bark, and then you can give them the treat. Now, funny enough, a lot of people will say, well, why are you teaching the dog to speak in order to get them to stop speaking? Well, because you have to teach them what is okay so that we can show what isn't okay through negative punishment later on. We're establishing that this is a behavior we like in small doses or in certain circumstances. We don't like this behavior all the time, and we're trying to explain this to our dogs. We're trying to say, hey, it's okay to bark in these circumstances, but not all the time. Now, funny enough, people with dogs like huskies who like to talk constantly will see that this is a very hard command to get through. But if you work with it and continue to push through, you will eventually get them to stop speaking at everything. So once you've taught them to speak on command, now you have to do the hard part, which is teaching them that speaking all the time isn't okay. So if they start barking on their own, one of the first things that you can actually do is just take away your attention. We've gone over stuff like this before with crate training where we say, don't pay attention to them in the crate. Again, if they're barking at you, just don't pay attention to it. Turn your head away and don't pay any attention until they stop barking. Once they stop barking, then you can turn around and continue to give them attention or do whatever you were doing with them. Continue training or doing whatever. That will begin the process of, oh, my owner didn't really like the idea of me just barking at them. Maybe that's something I shouldn't do all the time. It begins the process. And that taking away of attention is called negative punishment. It's when we take away something favorable that they like so that they understand that we didn't like what they were just doing. The most common thing that dogs love is our attention. So if they bark and we take away our attention, they don't want that to happen. So they'll soon realize that this isn't going to work in the long run. Now that will be great in small doses or short-term solutions to them just barking around the house or barking at certain things in the house. That will slowly be fixed with this. But now let's say you have maybe an open window or you have something that the dog can see outside and constantly barks at it all the time. How are you going to fix that behavior? That behavior is going to take a little bit more fine-tuning to work on. So first off, you're going to have to desensitize them to the idea of whatever's happening outside. So if it's birds, it's going to be a lot harder. But if it's people walking by, that's something we can work with that's much easier. But again, these processes will work for either birds or people or whatever it is that's happening. So you have a person that's walking outside. Your dog starts to bark. You can tell them, leave it. And if you've worked on leave it with them, they should take a step back and stop doing what they're doing. Now the next step, which is one we haven't gone over yet, admittedly, but you could say, watch me, or you could just go straight into sit. Now watch me is a focus command, which means it's just meant to get them to stop looking at what they're looking at and look at you to pay attention to what you're about to say. But if you haven't worked with them on it yet or haven't learned it yet, because of course we haven't gone over it, you can try to go immediately into sit. Or step between them and the object so that their attention cannot be on the object anymore, like you do with leave it anyway. Now once they're sitting, have them just be there for a little bit and relax and cool down from the hyperness that they were just expressing. Majority of the time, the barking isn't aggressive. Dogs have a bunch of different barks. There's the I'm scared bark, there's the aggressive bark, there's the I'm happy bark, They're just barks for every occasion for dogs. And as you own a dog and as you go through the processes of learning each different bark, you'll start to understand which one's which. Now, majority of the time, it's an I'm excited bark or hello friend, would you like to play bark? And so what you're doing is you're just cooling them down from that moment so that they can start focusing in on you and what you want them to do. Now, once their focus is on you and they're sitting, you can go into down, back to sit, do puppy push-ups, which is just sit down, sit down, sit down. And you do that over and over again to kind of burn out some energy, and then you can give them treats, you can kind of go into a training session and work from there. Now their attention was pulled away from the original stimulus so that they don't believe that they're being rewarded for barking at the thing and then working with you and then getting a treat. You want to make sure that you separate it through enough time that they don't correlate the two. Now, the desensitizing process begins when they see the person walking and they don't bark at them. Then you can give them a treat for not barking. When you tell them to leave it from before, you're telling them that you don't want them to pay attention to the thing outside. That whatever's happening out there is totally fine. So leave it is slowly grinding away at the idea that whatever's out there, just leave it alone. It's easier if you can control the experiment by having the person further away or having controlled people walk through different processes like that where you are in control of the entire training situation. Make it a lot easier. Because sometimes it's just how close the person is to the house, or it could be anything. But majority of the time, it's the proximity to them to the house. Maybe you started off completely slow, and what you actually look for is the person is starting to get into the dog's line of view, and the dog hasn't barked. Well, then treat that. The person has come halfway across and is now in the middle of where the window is. Treat that. The person has made it to the very end of the window. Treat that. The person has gone from left to right and didn't bark at all. Treat that. And the dog will start to learn, okay, I get rewarded for not barking in that instance, but I get treated if I bark when I'm told to speak. So maybe I should only bark when I'm told to speak. And you'll start to hone in that behavior to something that is more manageable, that's something you like. Because now you're communicating to your dog, this is good, this isn't. Now the same thing happens when you're walking outside. Again, if you have somebody that you can work with that maybe has a dog, if your dog reacts to other dogs, then if you know somebody with a dog, it makes it way, 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 way easier. You can start from 25 feet away, and if your dog doesn't bark at that distance, you can have them walk back and forth, give them a treat, come in 20 feet, walk back and forth, give them a treat, come in 15 feet, do 5-foot increments. And as soon as there's a spot where he starts barking again, stop, back it up, try from that point and get him more used to it, and then bring him in again. And slowly but surely, you'll desensitize him to the idea of barking at dogs while on leash. So the idea is that you're just desensitizing them to what it is they would normally bark at. And normally, when I say desensitize, it's because your dog is overly excited about meeting or seeing somebody that they think is fun. So barking is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just a fun thing. But still, we want our dogs to have non-aggressive meetings with other dogs outside. And other dogs might take barking as aggressive. Even though there's different pitches and tones and stuff like that for you to listen to, and the other dog hears it, the other dog might not be as socialized as your dog or other dogs in general. So you don't want your dog rushing up and barking because they'll think that this dog is being aggressive. And then a bite might happen or something might happen, and then the whole trip to the park will be ruined and it'll be a terrible ordeal. So in order to avoid that, we just teach our dogs, hey, it's cool. We're going to meet that dog, but just relax. And that's one of the rewards you can give your dog when doing this, is if they don't bark, they get closer and closer to the dog until they finally get to meet the dog. And that's great. That's a huge incentive for them to stop barking randomly at dogs outside at the park. That's basically what speak boils down to. We're teaching them, speak in these moments. These are the moments I want you to bark and it's okay and everything's fine. Don't speak in these moments. This is where it's too much or where you could get in trouble or not have as much fun. We're just teaching our dogs basically good behavior, good manners. As for everything else that's going on, sorry it took me so long to post another video. I've been extremely busy at home lately. I'm still researching and looking into the petition that I talked about maybe a video or two ago. I am looking at other petitions that are already up and what they are talking about and making the best decision as to whether to support another petition or to create my own. As far as it comes to animal cruelty on YouTube or TikTok or any social media platform. I'm thinking that on Saturdays, I believe, I will start posting up other videos about hobbies of mine that I like, such as movies or games or other things such as that. I may start talking about how I got into dog training and how I started my journey and how I got to here. Basically, Saturdays will be a extra video day to just kind of film anything that I feel like. As far as this video, that's it, and I will see everybody later this week. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.